Welcome to the Get Better Together project, hosted by Bubba Starts. Our mission is simple, to bring healing to each and every one of us by sharing our stories, communicating with one another, and relating. This is how we all get better together. Enjoy the show. Welcome into the Get Better Together project. I'm your host, Bubba Starts, my co-host, Sarah. And with us today is our good friend, Jamie Gilcrease. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. Hello.
Hi, Jamie.
No.
Well, I was very fortunate to catch Sarah's show. Sarah does Hustle Hard on Instagram where you girls were talking. But for our listeners here and watchers, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, Jamie, and we'll start the conversation there.
Sure. I like to say that I'm just a girl here in South Dakota. I came from Western Washington. Grew up there and I own a couple businesses. I'm a mom of three and I love community. So I don't know.
Big fan of your businesses. I used to live in the Lead Deadwood area, so I remember when you were up at the top of Baltimore there, right? And
Yeah.
and then that beautiful new building, and you really changed the look and the feel of the town of Lead when you did. I know Deadwood was always my address, but Lead is where I spent most of my time growing up. That's where all my friends are. That's where a lot of my friends still are. Thank you, Sarah. And
Yes.
yeah, I appreciated that. So outwardly, even though I'm sure we've run into each other, and I feel bad that I maybe never met you, most of my life I've had my head shoved so far up my own bottom that I haven't always recognized all the wonderful people that are around me. So I will apologize for maybe never introducing myself to you in probably the decade that we ran around with a lot of the same people. Mutual friend Kim Borsch, I used to ride the bus with. I think I commented on your gals live. So we know a lot of the same people. I know, kind of who you are now, but I don't know a lot about what made you this woman that you are now. And what we're all about here on Get Better Together is kind of sharing, as much as you're comfortable, I guess, some of our darker times, whether it's self-inflicted or whether it's something that we've been through. That's kind of what we focus on here. And I vouch for Sarah when I say that we are not here to judge anyone. I don't think either one of us are in a position to do so.
Nope.
So with that, Jamie, I will kind of open the floor and kind of let you and Sarah kind of guide the show from here. You two are friends already, and I am just an interested bystander.
Yes, I guess I'll just kind of talk for a moment here. Jamie and I have known each other in the community for a long time, but that doesn't mean we've talked to each other or been friends or done anything together until recently. I don't know, maybe just probably when I started with Milet Marketing more, when I started working with them, because that's Kim Borsch and Lucy Side. And so we got to know each other a little bit better there. And then I did some awakening of love therapy with her. And I guess that's what you'd call it. Her and another group where I made friends in there. And so I know some of Jamie's background, and she knows a lot of my background and has seen she's seen me cry so many times in just a couple days. And so I'm happy she's here tonight. And that building, I want to ask about your building, the Lotus Up. It's funny because he's like, that new building. It always seems like that's the newest building and it's been there for only a little bit of time, but it's been there for a long time, hasn't it? Isn't it like 10 years now?
Yeah, well, it's about 7. So I built it in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is.
I remember it well,
new.
Sarah, because it wasn't there when I left to go to Mexico, and then it was there when I got out of prison.
Okay.
So
See,
like
I still
I
don't
came
even know
back
about
and
this.
was like, whoa, there's a high rise in Lead now.
That's funny.
Oh,
Every
that's
time you
awesome.
mention prison to me, I'm just like, prison? Like, because I still have never talked to you about this prison thing. So one of these days, like we've said before, I think it's for marijuana, right? Am I
Yep.
correct? Yes.
Yep.
Which, hey,
Which
I
Jamie
got the med
sells out of her
card.
basement now, or
Yeah,
at least used to.
exactly. Jamie sells
Not
that
her
in her
real
basement,
basement.
and then I got my med card. So
Really
it's
good.
it's not that big a deal, these days, but still when you say prison, I'm just like, whoa, every time, thinking the worst. You just be probably selling a little bit of weed, I'm sure.
Sarah, let me tell you, it's a lot easier to go there than it used to be, right?
Yeah.
And with as prevalent as drugs are in today's society, and when you consider that even I mean, a hydrocodone in your pocket that you don't have a prescription for is a felony.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. To have it in your system is a
Oh,
misdemeanor or is a
yeah.
felony. I mean, they try to get you for
That's right.
felony ingestion. I don't know if they still have those laws, but half of my marijuana charges are for ingestion. I had it in my system. I could have got
Well, you
high in
shouldn't have done
Colorado
that.
or
It was
California.
illegal.
Right. Right.
I could have pulled you over. Okay. All
I'm
right.
surprised you
Well,
didn't.
we'll get back to that. So let's get back to Jamie here.
I
Jamie,
love you.
actually, yeah, you got a weed basement. You got weed down in the basement, don't you?
We down in the basement. Yeah, we're all about healing people here, and so
Can I
yeah,
ask a question while we're on that
sure,
topic? And
absolutely.
whether you know or not, I just heard that it is closing. Is that true?
I'm not quite sure. Yeah, there's some
But a big
things, there's
name.
some shifts going on. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's some shifts going on, and we're gonna hold them the best that we can, because we believe that what they're doing is important,
Yeah.
and we understand how hard it is, for their business and the marketing aspect. It's not like, here at the coffee shop, I tell about my specials and
Yeah.
I yell from the rooftops about all the amazing things I'm doing.
Yeah.
They don't have it that easy. And so we're really going to hold them in this transition, whatever that might look like. Because that's what we do. We hold our
Mhm.
people, and we're just going to feel it out, right?
Yeah. I will
Maybe
be
they
so
could
sad if that
sponsor a
happens.
podcast. I think FTH would look very nice right here in this space, right?
Yeah.
I've tried reaching out, but they don't listen to me, Jamie. Maybe you can put a bug in their ear.
Maybe
Well,
I can talk to
let's get through this hump in the road, which is happening for all of the medical marijuana shops around here. They're all half of them are closing. So get through the hump, then Jamie can go ask them.
him.
Okay. But yeah, Jamie, so you and I met at the awakening of, or not met, spent time together at your awakening of love that you brought to the Black Hills. I had no idea
Yeah.
about what that was. I got to do all my sharing, and you sat behind me, at times with your arms on me while I was sharing very, very hard stories with people that I didn't know and some people that I did know. And there was a time where I looked back and you were crying, and holding back tears. And so later you came to me with your own stories here and there and shared things. And so, yeah, just kind of tell us whatever you feel like sharing with your hard times with getting to where you're at right now and why you're in the services that you're in right now.
Yeah, so I have a past, right? I mean, we all have a past. We all have something that we've lived through. And mine, I wanted it to be really hidden. I didn't want people to know. I struggled for a long time. And Bubba, I actually sent you my book, my rough draft, and it gives a little bit of information in there. So for a long time, I wanted people to know me for who I am right now. And I didn't want them to see me through a filter of trauma or broken, and damaged material. And I think that I've met a lot of people that also have that same story. I was raised by an alcoholic, drug addict, and until I was 8. But in that time, I was sexually abused, emotionally abused, physically abused, to the point where, you we had seen a lot more than most people do in their adult lives. And so, in that transition, I mean, there's some real trauma there, and one of, it's hard to kind of say, but like, some of my stuff, like with the sexual abuse, it was pretty gnarly. So, and in that, my sister ended up being murdered. She passed away in that before we were adopted or into foster care, I guess. So for a long time, I just felt so damaged. Went into foster care. I was in foster care for a couple years. It was written that, I wouldn't be a part of society, that I was damaged material. Couldn't be a part of society, wouldn't be able to make something of myself. And I look at it as we don't get a prophesied, nobody gets a prophesied over me. But a long time I had to deal with that. And so I wanted to be liked. I wanted people to see me as something that had value, and I didn't feel that I had value. Um, so, I was ended up being adopted into a family. 2 years later, my mom left my dad. And so there was some trauma there. And my dad raised me for the rest of the time. He's an amazing man, um, just a good guy, but there was a lot of stuff there. So, then you keep going. And what I realized is that my trauma had really done a number on me. So I was showing up actually with a broken foundation most places where I was. And it has been probably the last, I would say, 8 years is when my healing started. In 2012, my life kind of turned around. I had started Lotus Up in 2000, the end of 2009, took over 2010, up where Bubba said, up on the hill. And it was beautiful. I made my way to Montana, met my husband then there, and then we moved here to lead and to raise a family. And so in that, I didn't know anyone here. I knew nobody. I didn't have family here. I didn't have friends, really anything. And so really kind of creating this space. And I didn't really want people to know where I came from. And honestly, I don't even think my husband at that time knew like what I had been through or the trauma that I had seen. And so it all started with going to the awakening of love, being asked to, not even asked, actually, there was a poster and it tugged at my heartstrings, and I knew I was supposed to go. I went just like Sarah did. And it's a process that is just unbelievably beautiful and rewarding. It was triggering for me. I never really knew what triggers were or even the word trigger, right? But in all honesty, I was triggered all the time. I was telling Sarah not that long ago, like I'd be in the grocery store and somebody would walk past me, like a man, and his cologne would literally send my body into a major meltdown. And I would have to leave my grocery cart. I'm like, let's go, kids, let's go. I gotta go. And, I look back at those times and I'm just so grateful that I did the work that I needed to do. And that was really digging deep. So, yeah, the awakening of love is what started that for me. And then going to the path of love is a 7-day intensive workshop that honestly saved my life. Bubba talks about trouble, right? Like, prison or whatever. I was actually up at the Lotus Up and I had a lady working for me and she turned me into the, what is that called? I don't know, turned me into the state or whatever. And I was under investigation. And I was actually facing federal jail time.
What?
And I am one. Yeah, isn't this crazy? So, yeah, federal jail time. And so I was I was a fucking wreck. A whole crazy thing. But
you didn't go,
so
right?
Yeah,
You didn't end up in prison, so that's good.
No, I didn't. But what that did for me is I never wanted to be in trouble, right? I was so afraid to get into trouble and I was always following the rules and the laws and everything to the T. And that really shook me, right? It really shook me that other people would think that I was bad or something. And actually, I mean, to be really honest, I went to the path of love. Because it was my last ditch effort to be on this planet. I was ready to be done. And I mean, that's my real truth, right? I want to be real and honest. Like I was ready to be done. And I talk about that in my book. I talk about, suicide. I talk about the feeling of not having value. Gosh, I want to cry. Like I feel that, right?
It's okay to cry here. I've
Yeah.
cried many times on this Zoom, on this podcast.
I just
Oh,
get angry
girl.
most of the time, but I'll cry with you. This is
We'll all
so
cry.
just how do you not cry? How did you not cry yourself to sleep for 30 years? You know,
Yeah.
I am it it's a lot, right? I have kids that are 8 and 9 years old. I can't imagine my daughter going through what you had to go through. I would, and then to not only suffer your own fate, but I'm sure the same thing obviously was happening to your sister, and then to have your sister torn away from you, who
Well,
was
there's four
maybe
kids in our family. I was the oldest, and then I have a brother that is just a fantastic human. I have another little sister, and then my sister Sandra, who passed. So and it's really, I mean, if we're getting really real, right, and honest, I always thought I had to protect them. And I look back on that piece and I talk about it in my book, but um and I don't know the full story of where my biological mom was. And in my book, Bubba, I talk about what are you capable of dealing or doing to those around you if you don't deal with your own bullshit,
Yeah.
if you don't deal with the pain, right? And the crazy thing is, and I'm just gonna say it out loud, and it's really hard for me, but I probably had more sexual partners before age 8 than most women have in their adult lives. And that was really hard for me. And
And hard to
and
say. Thank you for saying that because that's hard to say. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and the judgment, right, of other people, and but like it doesn't define me. Like I'm a beautiful woman, and I've found that beauty within myself that doesn't define me. And I couldn't imagine, ever putting my children in that circumstance or um those things. And I think that's why I've taken so long to release my book, because I lay it all out there. And
it's the worst story you've ever told.
right.
Well, and it's
Why
hard.
would you want that out there? You
We
know?
just
Right.
talked about this in one of our last podcast episodes about how we're coming clean and talking about, he's talking about the drugs that he's done, in the past. I'm talking about the drugs I did in the past and everything else. And it's hard stuff to put out there, especially because we have children and families and people in the community, a very small community that might watch this, and if they don't watch it, somebody's going to say it, somebody else will see it and say it.
Right.
And but I think we do, that's how people are going to heal and come together and get better, is by, because like me, knowing you ever since you had the drive up window small coffee shop, I would have never ever guessed any of that had happened to you. And even up until a year ago, I would have never guessed any of that. But then you can look at me and say, oh, I would never guess the things that have happened to Sarah. Same thing with Bubba. Never knew the
Yeah.
whole felon thing, any of that stuff. And so all of us have our traumas in our own way. And that's why we all need to come together and help each other get better and be there for one another, because it is a hard, tough world. There are bad people out there. And our kids do need to know that somehow. How do you tell them though? How do you say, I mean, it's even hard for me having the conversation. I just had the conversation a little bit yesterday with my 14-year or 16-year-old daughter, just bringing up because I ran into one of my sexual assault people that was part of that, who orchestrated it. I ran into him a couple days ago, 3 times
Oh, I'm so
at an
sorry,
event that I
Sarah.
had to go to. Yeah, and that shook me up. I was in an elevator with him. I was in the stairs with him at the place. And he was just, I didn't realize he worked there. And I hadn't seen him in years. And so yesterday I brought this up to my daughter and I just said, hey, I know you know somewhat of what happened, but I still just want you to know that this is a bad person and does bad things. And as you get older and you can choose to be around him because the daughters are best friends, we'll just say that. I said, I want you to make the right choice when you get older, because when people do bad things like that, it can happen again and again. And so and I said, if you have any questions, ask me. I'm not going to go through everything right now, but if you have any questions on any of it, I will tell you. And it's just hard to tell your kids. You don't know what to tell your kids, but you want to tell them because you don't want them going through the same stuff that you've been through.
Right. And I think it
Sarah,
is. Oh, go
how
ahead.
are you?
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Bubba. Yeah.
Am
Well,
I?
yeah. This is
Oh,
the
after
first time
that?
I'm hearing about it. Yeah.
Oh, I'm okay. It was just so weird, the feelings you get from that. I've only seen him once since this happened, and it was from afar, a place that he worked, and then I ran a different direction. And then I just happened to be at this ski for light thing, and he happens to work at this place, and I didn't even know that. And I go in, and right away I'm getting into an elevator, and I move over for one of the workers to let that worker in first, and I notice that person right away and goes in, and they're all waiting for me in the elevator, all these people for me. And I'm just like,
You can't drop the
complete, like,
shopping cart and run away.
yeah, I'm just like, just sitting there and I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And luckily, I did the best thing ever. I looked at the people in there and I said, I can't get in there. I can't go in the elevator. I can't go in the elevator. And his head was down. So he did not want to face me. Yes, his head was down. And I said, I can't get in that elevator. And they said, why, why, why? And I just said, I can't. So one guy jumps out and he goes, what's up, Sarah? And I said, I can't. He goes, is it this person? And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, he's I've known him for years. He's a good guy. And I'm like, no, actually, he did something very bad to me. And we took the stairs, and in the stairs, it's hard to tell people your story. It's hard to even like especially in a matter of seconds to just
Well,
say,
and
hey,
this is probably it's a small town, right? So we're friendly
yeah,
with a lot of people, even if we're not friends, right? And we
exactly.
were all in the same town. He's not telling that person that story, right? The
No,
person who did this to you isn't going out and broadcasting that to the
no.
world.
And if he were to broadcast anything, it would be
Everybody would think he's a
make up
piece of
something
shit.
bad. He'd make up something bad, I'm sure, about me, because they don't look like they're in the wrong.
No.
And so I just said it really fast because he was like, why? Because I said, I'm not going up there for the registration now because I did not want to go up there. And he said, why? And I just said, a sexual assault. And he's like, oh my gosh. And then, yeah, ends up right then he walks through the stairs. So right afterwards comes through the stairs where we're at. And I'm like, I don't think he meant to see me in there. He didn't think I was going to be in there. So again, his head's down and then again, I see him upstairs, and I got home and I was just thinking, to me in my mind, it's hard because I think Jamie can feel the same way too. When you've been through stuff like that, you still may have cared for somebody at one point. So she may have cared for her mother. She may have cared for her dad, people that did bad things to her. So at one point, I cared for this person. He was my friend. He was even a boyfriend in my mind at some point. And so when I saw him again, it brings back those memories of how you used to like that person. And then you have to tell yourself, oh my God, wait a minute. No, he hurt me really bad. And so it puts you through a whole crazy roller coaster of emotions that happens for a few days, a week. I don't know. It's just a constant PTSD type of thing. Yeah.
Mm.
So,
I didn't
so
mean to
I
cut
don't
you
know.
off, Jamie. I just I
No,
we
that's
we
okay.
only
Yeah.
we only get to talk once a week, and I send her a text once in a while to check in. I knew she has a lot of big events. Ski for Light I knew was coming up. But she would never text me this. She doesn't like to text in the first place.
I don't like to text. I called one person. I mean, I told my boyfriend right away, and he's like, "I got a gun," and I'm like, "No, no." And then I called Tasha, my friend who was at the Awakening of Love with me, and she's just really right on the spot there for me when this stuff happens. And she just said, "Wow, Sarah, I'm proud of you because you didn't get in the elevator. You didn't, you told your truth in the hallway, and so you're sticking up for yourself. And I think I did the right things, everything that I could have done. I didn't yell at the guy. I just told my truth and then left, and now I will deal with it. But that's something that happens, is we have to. That's the PTSD part, Jamie. I'm sure you have a lot of PTSD. that you struggle with. And things can trigger a cologne smell at the grocery store can trigger you. Little things can trigger me, but especially, yeah,
Well,
you run
and
into.
what's crazy is that for you, Jamie, you're so young that they're not even like tangible memories, right? Like this stuff is buried so far in the recesses of your mind that you don't even know why that smell is doing it to you, probably, that you're having physical responses to stuff like that. I would have to imagine that. eh, you're not even old. My kids can't even process their emotions when we're talking about doing our homework.
Yeah, it's really, it's interesting what trauma does to, kids though. I mean, I look back and I think about the things that I had went through and look at my children, right? Because my 9-year-old like wouldn't even, I mean, she wouldn't even know what to do. Like she just, you know what I mean? She just would not be capable of
But
like probably
you weren't
dealing.
either until
Yeah,
you had to
probably.
be, right? Until you
Right.
were put in that position where you had to survive now, because that's what it is, you know.
Yeah.
That and that's the triumph of the human spirit, maybe. The fact that you're here and is successful, and like you said, you got all the labels growing up, moving through the foster care and everything, and then that's a whole nother fucking thing, right?
Right.
Not to mention a dead sister now. And were you other three kids kept together then?
No, my brother was sent to his biological fathers because we all have different dads. And then my sister was adopted to a different family out of Seattle.
But you were all four together when this was kind of taking place then with your biological mother, or I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
until we were taken away. Yeah, I was in third grade.
So then, Jesus
And
Christ,
this
Jamie.
is this is the crazy thing. Like, I mean, I talk about it in my book, and I just go back and I think like I never told anything, I never like I just had this fighter spirit though. I was really tiny. I was probably way tinier than I should have been at those ages. And I just look, it's so crazy to me that I finally had enough with my mom, with my biological mom. And the turning point was there was this, it was like a class trip, and it was to the Chinatown in Seattle. And I wanted to go so bad. It was like my dream. And I told, my biological mom, like, we got to go. This thing is happening, blah, blah, blah. Well, she had another night of, drinking or partying or whatever. And I couldn't get her up in the morning, could not get her up. And she finally got up and got me to the school. Well, it was late. It was too late. I didn't get to go. And so I sat with all the kindergartners, and I was in third grade and I was fuming. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I have done all this for you. And it's so crazy to look back and think about some of this stuff. And I was like, I finally had enough. And I went into the principal's office and I laid it all out. I said all the things. And that's when they took us away.
Jamie, when you say you did this all for her, and if you're not comfortable calling her your biological mom and you want to use her first name or something or an initial, that's fine too, because I know that's got to fucking bristle a little bit to use the M word with her. That woman never loved you.
Yeah, well, and this is Bubba, this is where I think my story is a little different than others because through my healing process, I realized that she had been hurt too. And this is where I realized like where trauma steps in for us and where things change. And that's why I do what I do with the healing process and bringing things like the awakening of love here and the cohort process that I just started for women. It's called Next Level Collective. It's about giving people space to own their traumas, to look at them, so that they don't hurt the people around them. And she didn't have that. And how crazy is this? Is this last year, my daughter, oh, I'm getting emotional. My daughter got the opportunity to do an engineering program at the University of Michigan. And I knew at that point that maybe this is time to make amends or something. And so I went and stayed up and went and visited my biological mom. And it was the craziest experience ever. And I mean, one day I just cried all day long. That's all I did was cry in my little cabin. I'd rented this beautiful little cabin on Lake Trout. And when I saw her and saw how tiny she is and frail, and the life that she had lived, I couldn't imagine carrying the pain that she does. And I see it differently. In my book, I don't only give voice to the victims, I give voice to the perpetrators, because in some aspects, I became the perpetrator as well, right, in my own life. And where that comes from is, how did I protect myself, right? And so I might have not done the same things that she did, right? Because they are awful. They're really awful. But my oldest daughter went through hell because on the account of me, because I never was able to hold her because there was so much fear within me. I was so guarded. My marriage, I created uncertainty and I brought in fear. Like, I was built on a foundation of fear and trauma. And until I could brick by brick take that apart and build a new foundation, I couldn't see past right here. Just right here, what was in front of me. And that healing process gave me an opportunity to look at the people that are making decisions in our lives, or how my trauma affected those around me. And how did the trauma that my biological mom, this woman that gave birth to me, this gift of life, what must have happened to her in order to allow the things that happened to me, the life that was taken from my sister, the men that she allowed into our lives? Because ultimately, I really do believe that she wanted to be loved. I believe that she was so hurt by the things that had happened to her, that she used drugs to numb. I used my phone. I would check out on my phone, or I was a workaholic. So I worked a lot. I wasn't in my daughter Sage's life very much. And that causes its own amount of trauma. So when Sage came to me, my oldest daughter, and said, these are the things that are hurting or whatever, I created trauma in her life by saying, you have this amazing life. You have all this stuff. You didn't deal with what I dealt with. You have it all together. Like, what the fuck is your problem, right? I could not even see her pain. But my biggest thing is you and I both have pain. We just got there differently. And until I looked at that, I couldn't actually be there for her, because I was so in my own deep, dark shit. And that's where it comes in. Like, what are you capable of doing to the people that you love? I love her so much. And I hurt her because I couldn't hear her through my own trauma, until I chose to face it, to look at it, to dive in, pull it out. I couldn't understand her pain because her pain was real. She just got there differently than I did.
Well, that is the one thing, is like, and I've just going to that AOL with you and listening to other people's stories in a circle, and everybody has trauma in some sort of way. It's just that that's their trauma. That's what they dealt with. And to them, it's traumatic. And so this, to your story, to Bubba and to me, might be very traumatic, because yes, not a lot of people have went through that stuff. that's what you went through, and that was the normal for you. That was
Right.
the normal. Yep. And then, my traumatic stuff, I go into therapy, all that stuff when I was little, and I would tell them my stuff. They're like, that's not normal, but it's normal in our own minds. And so I do love how you are really, really working on the forgiveness part with everyone, because I knew that you had went to your mother's. That's when we were first starting to talk. We never really talked much after you going there. But that one's a difficult one for me, and to see other people be able to try to forgive and understand where you're coming from. That one's difficult for me. In
Was
all sorts of. Hmm?
Right. Sorry. I a couple of questions for Jamie, especially going back to see it, because as Sarah knows that both of our stuff is definitely problems, nothing to the extreme that yours is, but we have problems with our relationship with our parents. And for you, was it a big part of your healing journey to go and to see this frail woman and the way that her trauma had just completely taken whatever life she has? And did it almost create that pity for her? Was that, you know what I mean, where you were able to turn it? Did she share her trauma with you in this moment, or kind of how did you find out about these things?
Um, through some family research, I found out about some of her stuff. But for me, and I don't really have pity on her, I don't think. I mean, she has to live in her own hell, right? But like Sarah said earlier, like she was my mom. I loved her. I wanted her to love me. And there was some good about her, right? So it wasn't all terrible. I mean, it was really bad, right? But the way that I grew up was different. I didn't realize that that wasn't what most kids were dealing with, right? I knew something was wrong. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know. Yeah, it was really fucked up. I mean, it's really fucked up. And I think that those are the conversations that we need to have, is that some of these people in our lives, it's fucked up. Like you see domestic violence and people that go back because there's that
Yeah.
the circle of abuse, right? I mean, that was what I lived with. And there was moments in that trip, right? She's married to a man that loves her and dotes on her. And he doesn't know. He doesn't know the story, but she's been sober for 7 years, you know? She's been, to an extent, right? But she's had okay, so this is one thing I'll share. She shared with me, gosh, it like brings up some emotion in me. Um, and in a moment, I realized the the bigness of our stories and about how we want connection and love, because she had had a massive stroke, and she had to been taken care of, and she was so afraid that her husband that doted on her and loved her, right? And she's holding all these secrets in, right? All this stuff. And she was so afraid that he was going to put her in a nursing home, which he could have. And she said, you can put me in a nursing home. And he's like, well, why would I do that? Like, I love you. But this woman wasn't felt, she didn't feel love, right? She didn't feel these things. And now all of a sudden she's gaining this love from a man. And she has all these secrets and all this ick that's going on within her about what she had created. And I believe in forgiveness. I believe in all these things. I believe that every single person on this planet, I don't care how bad you are, you're a child of the Most High God. You were born on this planet with purpose. You were born. And so that piece, right? I believe everyone deserves love. And you see through these people that do really horrific things, that in causing pain and all of that. And I might be different. I'm bred different. I'm within me. My cells are different, right? But I just believe that people deserve love. And I
That's why
saw
you and
in
I
her.
are a lot alike. I think we're both Pisces, by the way, too. And but you just listening to you talk about how empathetic you can be for other people.
The
I am
compassion
that
for
as well. Yep.
her in general is just like,
Yeah.
that's beyond me.
And that's how I feel a lot with my mother, my father's, my sister, my, the sexual assaults, the this, the that, my ex-husband, all of those things is I feel the empathy too. And so I probably need to work on more of that and sharing that rather than keeping it all inside. So I'm thinking, even when I almost said his name, but even when I saw that guy the other day, the same thing. All I could think about when I went home was like, oh, he looks better than the last time I saw him 4 years ago. He looks like healthy, like, oh my God. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I'm having empathy for him because I cared about him. And I saw him care about me at times. And I saw him treat me well, just like my ex-husband and my mother and my fathers and my sister. And so the same with you, with your mom, you can
Yeah.
still remember your mother being a good mother when at certain times, and
There was moments, right?
your
These moments, these
siblings. Yeah.
glimpses that I held on to. Yeah.
Hmm. And that's, if this is all that we know, these are the life that we know. That is why people will go back to when they've been through traumatic stuff. We'll just keep going through circles and circulating through people, that brings more trauma. So more abuse comes, more sexual trauma, all that stuff, because that's somehow what you end up being comfortable with. And we're empathetic people. And so I don't know. It's a hard thing
Well,
because
and I think too is like having those healthy boundaries and finding too where we find voice, right? And I go to counseling too. I go to counseling once a week. I mean, I do like different kind of therapies like this somatic, right? Learning what my body is telling me. Um, because for so long I was raised to, I don't know, I was raised to be fit in the box for what men wanted, or for, you see these children that get um trafficked, right? And you see these things, and this is real. And then you see that, what is that syndrome that they then want to be with their abusers, right? It's called something I can't
Stockholm
remember.
syndrome.
Yeah, like
is
this is
that what it's
real,
called?
right?
Well,
Yeah, so
that
this
is
is
a real
real.
thing. I mean, that
And
is
so
even just
how do we give people back their voice? How do we give people, like, still having empathy, yes, but then also leaning on these strong people that are like, Jane, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Because I would put myself in situations where I continued to get abused or continued to get hurt. And then I'm like, oh shit, like this isn't healthy. So it's like learning also how to have boundaries and how to say what you did was wrong. Um, and having that empathy, but also like being like, no, like you don't get to hurt me anymore. Right. And I think that those are the conversations that, I'm so grateful that people have helped me. Um, I don't know, get through and
Do
it gets to a good point when you can tell people you can't hurt me,
yeah,
because that is such a fulfilling thing. It's hard. And I have done that in my life with, like, just in my marriage, you can't hurt me
right.
anymore. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Was it hard? Yes, it's so hard. The same with not getting in the elevator, 2 days ago or whatever day that was. Not getting in the elevator. That's like, you can't hurt me anymore. I'm not going there. And to see you do that too, it is all about boundaries, and then noticing our patterns of trust. I think you and I both trust a lot of people and want to think that the world is great and everybody's great in it. And we find out that it's not, but we have to have our boundaries up. And we're finally figuring that out how old are you again, Jamie?
I'm going to be 42.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm 42. So in our 41 and 42-year-old age right now, we're finally coming to that. And that's why I chose the boyfriend that I chose, that I've been dating for the last 3 years. He's never going to hurt me. He's the type of person that I feel safe with, and is just going to be that boy next door. And that's the type of person that I need for me.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Jamie,
Yeah.
Bubba.
did
Go ahead,
you,
Lilia.
yeah, did you, I don't know, just like, so as a mother going back to meet your mother again and having her kind of share the stroke story with you. I guess that kind of, because when she tells him, you can put me in a nursing home, this woman still has no value of her own life. She still feels worthless at 50 some years old. Did that strike you now as being someone who is, a mother themselves? And like, did that kind of bring up some stuff to you too, that like, I need to get my fucking house in order, or this could be me and my kids in 20 years or whatever?
Yeah, so I had done a lot of this healing already, right? So I've been working on this healing since 2012. And I mean, I was super destructive. We talk about, or things that I had done, like was very reactive and stuff in earlier years. And this was different. This was going back and having healed this healed spot and just being so grateful, like so full of gratitude that that isn't going to be my story. That my relationship with my two younger ones is really tight. I've been able to hear them. I can hear their cries. I can hear when they need something. I can meet them there. Um, and and Rose still, or yeah, her name, but she's still, she's in it. She's still in the hell. She's still in the ick,
So,
and I
so was
watch
it
her.
more of a glimpse of the woman that you could have been had you not taken a path of healing?
Yes, Baba, right there. That was, and that gets, yeah, that's right there. And what that stuff, like what your actions, and trying to hide, right? You see people around here hiding with drugs. You see them, because their own insecurities, their own ick, their own whatever through, gambling. I mean, you see that a lot. You see people checking out drugs, alcohol. Oh my gosh, I see so much of that around here. And trying to fit in and using alcohol to connect and
when
I
when
just
everybody is so loaded that they don't know who or what they feel, and it's such a mess. I'm so glad I don't live there anymore.
well,
Sounds like small
Just a
town.
bunch of hurt, well, and beyond that, a bunch of hurt fucking alcoholic addicts, and you're all just fucking each other's lives up.
yeah,
And no offense to people that are there, but I've lived through it. I've watched it. I've watched generations of it, and
yeah,
it's because of, I mean, I'm not going to blame it all on the town and things, but you can't have a town that's built on the fucking party 24/7 and not fuck up your community with it, you know?
right.
And we moved into that. And I was 10 years old and my dad didn't work in the mine. My dad moved out to the hills for a different reason, right? He was running from the city and whatever that was. I'm very grateful to be raised where I was raised, but I live in a different kind of small town now, and it's not fucking like that at all. My town only has 1,000 people in it too, and they're not out fucking getting plowed and fucking each other every night and fucking each other's husbands and wives and like, what are we doing?
Here he goes. He's getting a little angry.
Just,
Okay.
well,
We got a
but it's
whole
but it's so
But it's
socially
creating war,
acceptable
yeah.
there because everyone is kind of doing the same thing, right? And you
my
get trapped in these circles with a bunch of other hurt, fucked up people, and it's a downward spiral, and it breaks people, and it kills people, and it just destroys lives, and it does. And I don't know if you didn't have gambling, if it wouldn't be like that. I don't know what the town was like before that. We didn't live there. Leeds a lot different community now than it was back when I moved there in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was going to high school and stuff. But yeah, all of my memories are all of that pain and looking around at all of my friends, and we drug ourselves and each other through it for 15 years until a
Yeah,
lot of us finally woke up from like a collective comatose, like, oh my God, we've all been destroying our lives. And until a lot of us dealt with the addictions, right? And then it's funny how once you stop the drinking or the drugs or whatever it is, I got a lot of clarity in 2 years in prison. That's a lot of time with yourself. That's a lot of Bible reading and getting to know yourself through, some of the greatest stories ever told, right? There's a reason it's in circulation still. You know, you mentioned God in it before. God has brought us here now to
Yeah.
do exactly what you've said, Jamie, to heal people, to heal ourselves, but to heal the millions of people hopefully that see this and go, "Oh my God, I don't have to live that life." You know, or I don't have to hide my story. You know, I say it a lot to our other, you know, other people that have come on, like, you know, especially for you, Jamie, somebody else gave you that story. You didn't give yourself that story, but you still had to own it. And you still had to own all of it to begin to heal yourself. Jay, I can't even imagine the pain that you've suffered. I can't even, I would be bawling uncontrollably if I allowed myself to feel it. It's not that I can't feel it, it's that I won't let myself. I don't want to hurt that bad. I've been hurt
Right.
that bad before and I won't even let myself go there. And that's why I talk about like the compassion that you have to even go sit with this woman. My father didn't do anything quite, you know what I mean, that extreme. Nothing like that ever happened to me. Yes, he hurt me, but I don't even want to be in the same room with the man or his wife because I just finally, once I said, "You're not going to hurt me anymore," was like, well, then you don't get to celebrate any joy with me either. And you're not going to be celebrating this life that I've built and these kids. My kids, if I didn't get out of prison and set my life straight, Jamie, my daughter and my son that I have full custody of now could be in the same situation that you were in. They had a baby brother that got taken into CPS. And if I wasn't there at the moment that I was there, my daughter could be the one that could be telling your story. And that fucking breaks my heart to even think about. You know, my daughter's 8 years old right now. To think about her going through that. We were talking about our spelling words today. That's what 8-year-olds should be worried about. You know, Lucky's not spelled with an EI or an EY, sweetheart, you know, and she's in tears at the table about it because she made a mistake. And, you know, honey, it's okay that you made a mistake. It's that I knew from testing her that she hadn't gone through a process. When we get our spelling words, we write them all down. Well, she spelled it wrong twice in a row. I went, honey, did you write it down the wrong way when you went to write it? Sure enough, she grabs her notebook. She had written it down, Luckey. Because I looked at the whole sheet and not a single one on that sheet was spelled with an EY. Honey, you don't just add an E in here on all of these words when they didn't have it if you didn't write it down wrong. And you made one little mistake. You made one mistake, but then you multiplied that mistake 10 times, right? And you drove it into your brain, and now that's how you thought it was. So what do we have to do? We have to go back. We have to retrain and we have to go through the process again. And then when she wrote it out 10 times the right way, she was able to deliver it the right way.
And
And
Bubba, I think just that little story about her, right? And how she was writing it, I think that's us as humans and generational trauma, right? The same thing over and over and over again. And until we have someone like yourself, this, this daddy that holds you in it. I had these mentors that came out of like nowhere. They were like my angels, the angels that walk among us. And these people came and showed me a different way. They showed me a different way. They showed me that there was something more and bigger to believe in. There was some that shared Jesus. I love Jesus. God, I love Jesus. Jesus is my hero. And just the way that he was on the cross and he looks over and he says, Father, forgive them for they do not know. It's the same thing. This generational trauma, like the spelling words, over and over and over again. You see this in generations. Like the parents do this, the drinking, these kind of things, these thought processes. But until we have people like you and I and Sarah speaking truth and saying, this is our truth, this is how we're coming through this, right? And it might give them permission to change too, right? There's a different way. And you were sharing, how your daughter, no, this is a different way, right? This is the way to spell it. We take out that because over and over and over again, if people like Sarah and I, we lived a certain life growing up. And so we thought that was normal until somebody says, oh, nope, that's not how you do it, or that's not a good way, right? There might
Yeah.
be a different way.
Yeah,
I
my
think
wife
just
Danielle was my savior, right? Because
oh,
she was a correctional officer at the prison I was in, and she had moved to Deadwood 3 months before I got out. So I only knew like one person. I'd been gone from the town forever, and when I got out there, it was like, hey, the cute CO, I'll try. And now we've been together for over 6 years, right? And
I love
and
that.
she and her family showed me a different way. Starting to hang out with them was like, oh, families aren't supposed to be this fucked up. Like, oh,
Right.
there's a different way to raise my kids and a different way to treat people. And like I've had to learn all of that stuff from the ground up. Just like you
Beautiful.
girls have. Not that, any of us come from a better situation.
No, I think this whole world's kind of fucked up, right?
I think what you got to do though is the best part, what I'm learning through my therapies and books and all of that is you do have to pull it out and work on it and sit with it and rather than pushing it all down and acting
Yeah.
like it never happened because
Mhm.
yeah, Jamie doesn't want to think about the things she's gone through. I don't want to think about the things I've gone through. I don't want to think about the things Jamie goes through.
I
But and the same with Bubba, I've known you for a little while, Bubba, and I can tell you can get really upset and have a lot of anger that's built up inside because you don't even want to think about it anymore. You don't even want to, but maybe this is where Jamie could help you with all the things she's doing because it's all still going to be there. You're still going to have your PTSD moments from all of the things you've been through, your
Well, it
traumatic things.
just listen to the questions that I'm asking her about her story. Oh, you went
Yeah.
and talked to your mom and you have this
Yeah.
compassion for her and you just like, how are you doing that? Because
Yeah.
I don't even have that software. You know what I
It's
mean?
hard.
Like I've never got I don't have that program downloaded. What
Most
is
people
that?
don't. Most people do not have that. So you have to go and learn it from somewhere else. And it's not easy to do. It is not, no matter what. I try in little ways just with my mother right now. I'm really trying with her. And she also, she has been hurt and she has been dealt, her own hard cards or whatever you try to say. And I'm trying to see that as well, but also not let it hurt me on top of it and go
Right.
back to the same things.
Right. Well, and my
And
biggest thing is that like not excusing them for what they did. Like I can forgive you. I can't excuse you for it.
yeah,
I don't know why I am so hungry for like even because the apology at this point is not going to matter. It's 25 years later, dude. My life's already fucked up. Thanks for nothing. Like it doesn't matter at this point, but there's still that 14-year-old me that's like fuck you.
mhm.
Fuck you.
But what
And
I
I
want to see is like people, if they're working on themselves too, and they are trying, then I want to try to figure out how to forgive them and try to understand. And that's where
But I
it.
think, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and I think, Sarah, I think forgiveness is it's for me, it was really digging in my own self and healing myself. And once I forgave myself, then I could forgive other people. And I think for me, it was that self-forgiveness. And I know it sounds kind of crazy, but um, it was owning my own shit and how I was showing up in the world and hurting those around me by me reacting or me with my defense mechanisms, right? So it's really like coming back, like my book is The Mud Through My Eyes, The Journey Back Home to Myself. It was coming back home here
How
and
do you
then
forgive
being,
yourself? That's the hard part because what if, like in my own mind, I don't feel like I've done anything really bad to other people. There's been times where I'm not perfect, whatever. But it's like, how do you forgive yourself to forgive other people when you feel like there's not a lot of stuff? Like maybe it's just forgiving who I am. I
I
am this way.
Sarah,
What do
I
you do?
don't know if there's a way. I mean, the teachings of Christ are that. you can't forgive yourself. You're human. You're always going to remember that. And I think a lot of the, the teachings, especially when you just stick to what Christ is that when you're reborn, I mean, really, we're reborn every day. You're a new group of cells. You are a new, like it is new. You go to bed, one person, you wake up a different person, and every conversation and everything changes you. So you're not even forgiving yourself as you are today. You're forgiving yourself for something that you were 10 minutes ago or 10 years ago. You're not even that same person anymore. And I think that's a lot of the Christian laying it on the cross, right? Leaving those things there and giving your life to Jesus Christ, like so many people have done, right? Is for so many, it's something because we're incapable of it, I think, as just human beings. Like in this form, I don't know that we're really capable of that without help
Yeah.
from what Jamie, I know you love Jesus, right? And
Right.
that's been the most, obviously the most talked about and the most taught teachings of it. But a lot of, Buddhism takes a much different route to that just everything is suffering and it doesn't matter, and I don't necessarily know that's the way either. We're all kind of searching for that forgiveness of ourselves, and you can't do it unless you're going to be honest with yourself too, right, Jamie? Like you have to pull it
Yeah.
all out and all the things that you don't tell anyone, that you don't even want to tell yourself. You got to pull that shit out too, or you're never going to get there.
And I think there's a piece I talk about here and there around curiosity. A great mentor of mine, Joe Bartman, just a beautiful human. He really brought it to my attention that judgment and curiosity can't live in the same place. And so when I was asking questions of people, or when I was asking questions of myself, if there was any sort of judgment at all, it wasn't going to be fixed. Like I couldn't see it unless I was out of judgment. And what I realized in all of that is I got really curious about what was really happening deep within, right? And I call it the roadmap. And when I'm working with people, we also talk about that, the roadmap of feelings and, relationships, right, with a father. And when you have some judgment going on, which you get to have that if you want, but when we really get curious about why people are the way that they are, really get curious. And if you ask them a question and you think you know, that's a bullshit question. It's a bullshit question. So if we ask a question, like an insightful question, and that's the way I work in cohort process and this next level collective is coming from a place of curiosity, right? These questions that are really insightful, like when you're seeing someone and they're having patterns of behavior, what are you willing to lose in order to continue the behavior, right? I don't know the answer. And when I'm working and I'm coaching and I'm with people, I know wholeheartedly that they hold all of the answers for them. I have no idea. Once I start thinking I know, it's bullshit. So I go back to curiosity and go back to this space of really asking them insightful questions, not for my own knowing, but for them. And so it's an act of service, if that makes sense.
Totally. And we've been talking for about an hour now. I think that's a great point for you to go ahead and you work in these cohorts, right? Can you share some, we don't need any info, but plug away, all the stuff where we can find it and where we can get involved with you, because obviously I need it.
So Lotus Vision Coaching is my website. You can go there. You can see the Next Level Collective. I work with an amazing man named Chris Mallow. We work in corporations, nonprofits, different things to really bring connection to people. And so on there, you can get to us by lotusvisioncoaching.com. I do this Next Level Collective. I'm focused right now just on women. I really believe women are going to be able to teach their children, and not saying that men can't. I think men are very beautiful. But I'm focused on those women right now, and they're going to be able to raise the next generation, coming from a place of curiosity. And then Chris and I do women and men together. And that's a beautiful process as well. Awakening of love. I hold space for that. I go and give time to it. I work the Path of Love process. It's world renowned. If you want to go look at the Path of Love, it's amazing work. I go and I staff every year. It's my give back. There's one in Colorado in April. I highly suggest it. It's a place where anything you are loved for who you are, all your darkness and your light. Who am I? If I'm a rose, I'm also the thorns, right? So again, it's these processes that can allow people to just wholeheartedly be who they are and be seen. And vulnerability is what leads it. And so, yeah, if you want to look me up, that's where I'm at. I'm Jamie Gilcrease at Facebook. I share a lot on there. Bubba's seen some of my stuff. Lotus Vision Coaching. I got a few things
Yeah, I think I
there.
have something. I think I got a little thing with your name on it right here.
Oh, beautiful.
The
Oh,
Lotus
there's
Vision
my, yep.
coaching.
And then also on that cohort guide, Sarah, we do, I just have a QR code that I put out on everything that you can find me and let me know that you're interested. And
Yeah, all types of stuff in here. The Next
Sarah,
Level Collective.
Sarah, any parting shots before we let everyone go? Awesome.
Huh?
I said any parting shots before we let everyone go?
Partying shots? Like shots. No, just kidding. All I've got to say, I guess, is thank you so much for sharing, Jamie, all that you shared. I know that is difficult and very hard to do. It's getting easier with you and I, but now Bubba's here and whoever else wants to watch this. And those are difficult things, not easy to do. And the only reason you are that good at doing it right now is because you have been working very hard on yourself for years. And anybody can get to that point, most likely, if they start wanting to work on themselves and looking for help and asking for help and sharing their stories. And by sharing your stories, it's going to help other people who are going through things. Yes, there's judgment. There's always judgment, and sometimes there's not. And you find the most beautiful people out of that hug you and are your friends. And the minute I told my story about the one of the biggest stories, all these people came to me and they were like, hey, I have a story too. I have a story too. I have a story too. And you're like, holy crap. You never knew any of those that many people were dealing with being molested, sexual assault, things like that. And so once you share, other people will come too, and then you kind of find a community together. So thank you, Jamie, for coming to our podcast and sharing your time with us. And I know Bubba was happy to meet you.
yeah, thank you guys. I'm so honored to
Well,
be able
and
to
I
share with
was incredibly moved by your story and for sharing. It takes an incredible amount of courage to do the work that you've done, to be in a place where you can come on, a friend and a stranger's podcast and to lay it all out there. And I hope that this gives you the confidence to finally publish that book and to let your story live. And for me, what this show has become and what I've come to realize through doing it is that this is how God is speaking to us, Jamie. This is how God is healing our world. He's allowing us to express this perfect love that there is for us, right? And to express that by sharing with each other. And it's so much healing, just the three of us sharing it and the personal healing that we get from it. But then imagine this going out as a beacon to so many other people that whether they've lived the piece of the story or they can relate to it. And in that relating, they feel like they're not alone and they feel like they're not worthless. And just like you said, getting this story out, this is how we heal ourselves. This is how like everybody getting better together makes the world better. And that's kind of the show was called Get Real to begin with. And once we got real and cried a little bit and I got a little angry and we realized that no, this is how we get better together. And now That's why the show is called what it is. And what we continue to do in this path that we're on, we hope is to build that community, Sarah.
Yes.
Is to build that much in the same way that Awakening of Love and the Path of Love and all of these things, they form a community of healing around it. And to just keep doing that. That's really all I want to do with my life. I hope that I'm able to build this burgeoning business and network into something that can support that kind of healing, because that's what the world needs. That's what I need. You know, that's what Jamie needs, and that's what Sarah needs too. And
What I need.
and
Yeah.
if you're tuning in, that's probably what you need too. So,
Yep.
ladies, thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bubba. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Bubba. Thanks, Jamie. And yeah, everybody go off into the world. I'm going to go do, my son just got home, so I'm going to talk to him for a minute, and then I'm going to go
Shout
do
out
some
to Phoenix.
super
What up,
light-
dude?
There's Phoenix. Yeah, he's like, Mom, I'm coming through to get some food before EMT classes. And then I'm going to go hit up Ski for Light karaoke tonight. So I got to do
Awesome.
some content creation with that. But yeah.
Go
And
have
Jamie,
some
if you're
fun.
down for that, if you're down for karaoke tonight, Jamie,
Right. Oh, I
I'll
love
see you
it.
there.
All right. Bye, ladies.
All right.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Bubba.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scene Projects Podcast Network. We appreciate you listening. You can find more at thesceneprojects.com and join our community.
Got an ocean full of love that's made for two. We can sail upon the ocean breeze.